All right, welcome back. Time to mix it up. This first topic here, I'll start with Senator John McCain, who's calling for National Guard troops to seal portions of the U.S.-Mexico border. The reason for this, McCain appearing at a town hall at his home state this afternoon, where tensions are running high after a rancher was found shot dead in his ATV. Authorities tracked footprints from the crime scene back to the border. Monday, McCain sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano asking for additional troops on the southern border region, citing growing violence and demanding that the government do more to, quote, protect its citizens. Here to mix it up is our panel, former special counsel to President Clinton, Lanny Davis, and Republican strategist Alex Conant. Alex, how do you approach this issue in the context of the border itself, the utilization of illegal immigrants, the violence in that country, the consumption of U.S. consumption of Mexican-grown drugs? Yeah. Take it how you want. We all know the scenario. How do you approach it?
Well, it's a really big problem. The government in Mexico is fighting a de facto war against drug lords in Mexico, and it's starting to spill over a little bit into the southern United States. That's why Senator McCain is asking for the federal government to help the state of Arizona secure that border. It's actually something he's been asking for a long time. I think that this most recent example, the murder near the border, is all the more evidence of why the federal government needs to take the threat of illegal immigration more seriously than it does, especially with this drug war.
Yeah, Lanny, how much is that? Can you address this directly through security, sending again troops, more soldiers, however you wanted to do it, local law enforcement, funding more local law enforcement, and how much of it has to be dealing with the reality of the drug war that's escalating in our southern border, as the U.S. is the primary buyer of the drugs that are being fought over in Mexico?
Well, first of all, I understand that Senator McCain is in a political campaign, and there are certain things he has to do and say when he's being run at from the pretty conservative wing.
Yeah, but he
of the
said
party.
this a year ago. He said this a year ago.
But
before there was a campaign.
Well, he still has political issues in Arizona, as do the people in New Mexico, with serious border concerns.
But it forget all that. So how do you address the real issue, which is, we all know what that is?
Law enforcement in the state is the primary responsibility, not federal troops, and it's not about illegal immigration. It's about crime, and crime from the drug wars in Mexico. Making this into an issue about illegal immigration, I would respectfully disagree with.
Do you have to acknowledge that the U.S. is the largest consumer of Mexican drugs?
Yeah, and you have to help Mexico deal with the drug war directly, which this country is doing. But I'm just saying politicizing it and talking about illegal immigration is not something I would agree with.
All right, let's go overseas for a second. Russia today hit by a new pair of suicide bombings. 2 more. 12 more dead. The second bombing caught on a cell phone camera. The first bomb detonated from inside a moving car. The second by a bomber wearing a police uniform. The attacks were staged in the southern province of Dagestan. It's an area ravaged by regular bombings from Islamic militants. We are familiar with the issues with U.S. security as it pertains to jihadists, whether they're Christian or Islamic jihadists. Lanny, do you have context for us for the Russian issue with Islamic or religious jihadists in general?
I think whether it's Russia or China or the United States or any civilized country in the world, this is a war between civilization and people who celebrate death. And Russia and the United States and the civilized world are united about that, as are the peoples of the Middle East. And the terrorist division here between the celebration of death and anti-civilization is what these terrorists are about, and the war on terror is still a reality, no matter where it takes place, whether it's in Russia or on 9/11 in the United States.
What strikes me, Alex, when we go back to Iran and look at the leverage that our country has with Iran and the Middle East in general, which is still where so much of this develops, or abundance of it develops, and yet Russia and China are our 2 greatest allies to leverage Iran and other aspects of the Middle East, and both countries refuse to engage as American allies with a cohesive strategy to either deprive that part of the world of energy consumption, which the Russians and Chinese are happy to buy Iranian oil, etc. And until you deal with that alliance, can you really deal with this war on terror?
No, absolutely. And as I understand it, these bombings are not connected to the Mideast directly. They're not connected to Iran, but it is a reminder that terrorism is a worldwide concern and that the civilized world needs to unite against rogue regimes like Iran. It's outrageous that the United Nations has not acted, in large part because Russia and China continue to drag their feet. I hope that the Obama administration is able to persuade our allies in China and Russia to confront Iran more directly before they get nuclear weapons.
Listen, gentlemen, a pleasure to have the conversation with both of you. Thank you for it. Still ahead here. Thanks, guys. Still ahead, a new lease on life for rats in the Big Apple.